We'll support you till the end of the day. We're so happy following the Blues. We love you, what more can we say?
One of my favourite tunes of all time, that one. Welcome to the Tilton Talk Show. It's 6:30 on a Monday night. It's through to 8 o'clock. We have got a cracker for you tonight, an absolute cracker. This show, of course, is sponsored by Boylesports, principal sponsor of Birmingham City Football Club. We'll be talking about the Stoke City game, the normal impending game. But now I'm going to introduce you to tonight's team. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Chris Browne.
Good evening.
All the way from down south with his cricket jumper on, mate, with his cricket jumper on. The one and only chairman of the board, Alan Watton.
Good evening, everybody, from sunny Sussex. It was wonderful today.
Right. We all wanted to know that, didn't we?
Yes, I hate you.
The inimitable Mr. Craig Courtney.
Good evening, everyone, and just to add, welcome to sunny Solihull.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but you're in the rough.
Well,
he's in the rough part. Don't worry about it.
50 miles north of there, it's cloudy, so. And all the way from Coventry, ladies and gentlemen, Coventry.
Where?
What place?
Concrete City.
Mark Adams.
Hello, everybody. It's been grey here as usual.
And back from the jolly holidays, all the way down there in sunny Florida. Welcome, Black Claire Giblin.
Good to be back. Nice in the warm.
We'll talk about your holiday in a minute, Shug. And for myself, good evening and welcome. But our special guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is somebody from my era. And it's an absolute joy, a pleasure and an honour. The one and only Gordon Taylor OBE. Who are you?
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you, as it was to visit Birmingham just the other Saturday. It was great. Great to be back.
Yeah, superb. Gordon, my life, my goodness gracious me. I don't know whether you can remember when we played Newcastle in some kind of milk cup or something, and Tony got his leg broke up at Newcastle.
Yeah, I remember.
We played Newcastle the following Saturday after, and I'm sure you are in the programme as being in the very, very first team that I ever went to watch at Birmingham City Football Club. Thank you.
All right.
Great days.
That was a bit of a grim night up at Newcastle. It wasn't quite the Newcastle that they have today, but
I didn't go, to be honest with you, to that one. My dad took me, and I remember like walking up past the Kingston Bingo Wall, the houses that had been bombed out in the war, and all that, and walking into St Andrews. Fell in love that day. Never been out since. Not once. Not once.
That's brilliant.
I've had moments. Don't get me wrong.
We had Jim Smith, I think.
Jim Smith, crikey, yeah.
Smith Tony once had a bit of a personal feud, as I remember. Yeah. But then again, I remember playing with Bolton when we needed to get a win up there. And I used to take the corner kicks. Wyn Davis, we had big, tall Welsh centre forward.
Mm-hmm.
First 5 minutes, I got a chance of taking a corner, got it up high, looked for him, and he was laid flat on the ground. John McGrath had just floored him. And then Jim Harvey, Joe Harvey, came in at the end of the game because they got promotion to give us a bottle of champagne, and we told him in no uncertain terms.
You see, what the kids don't understand now, Gordon, is that back in that time, right, that era, the 70s, you played on mud. You played with a big heavy ball. You played with your hand on your heart and a lion up your sleeve, and you played for a football team and for the 30, 40, 50,000 people that were in that stadium around you, making one of the most intense, incredible noises I can ever remember in my lifetime.
I think that's really good of you, the way you've described it, because the Birmingham crowd were fantastic, not just when we're doing well, but when we needed to beat teams like Norwich to stay up on our first season.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And when you played at the baseball ground, Derby County, it was like the World War I trenches, really.
Tin Alley.
I liked it. And then, of course, you had players like, blimey, Charlie, like the Tommy Smith, I suppose. They always laughed, said, when I had an England schoolboy trial with him, and he came off that day with a leg that was badly cut and bruised, and he hadn't a clue who it belonged to.
But But what
Norman
days? I mean,
Hunter, he had Norman Bite Your Legs Hunter, and he was
Oh, yeah.
74. It was the very first PFA Awards dinner, and I was on the committee then. I'd been on the committee since being the delegate for Birmingham City when Ray Martin put me forward, and went down to the awards dinner there. Yeah, and I suppose, blimey, Norman Bite Your Legs Hunter. But that was an unusual choice to go for a defender. That's how highly he was thought of. But he was highly regarded by his fellow pros. And the young player of the year was, God bless him, another top quality centre back defender, Kevin Beattie.
really,
Kevin
yeah,
Beattie,
yeah.
Kevin Beattie.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, Gordon, you're going to name drop a lot of people tonight that we're going to go, wow.
Well, my best time was when I was just saying to Chris before, when Jim Smith bought me for Bolton Wanderers, being 76 on deadline day. He got me from Birmingham. Freddie Goodwin had gone then, which is another story. Willie Bell was in charge, and he signed me from Birmingham and Dave Wagstaff from Wolves.
Mm.
And then we kept him up. And then first season, I got a stress fracture in my leg. You know, Jim, because he came down to Birmingham. But I went for an X-ray. It didn't show up. And I was playing for about 3 months with a broken leg. And he said, "Oh, I've made a bad signing." I said, "I can't run." And then I went for the X-ray again. And they had to apologise to the hospital and said, "It's a stress fracture, so it's not settled." Anyway, moving on, I was lucky. Let me go to Vancouver in the summer of 77 to play with Vancouver Whitecaps. Derek Posse from Millwall came over. Tony Waiters was the manager. And I had one of the best nights of my life because we played Cosmos, New York Cosmos. It was Pele's very last season. We eventually won the league when Muhammad Ali came on. I got a great picture of them together. But that night in Vancouver, the Empire Stadium, where Gordon Pirrie had run against John Landy in the 50s. You could see the Pacific Ocean. You could see the mountains of British Columbia. We had a full crowd, 30,000. And believe it or not, we were 3-0 up after 20 minutes, and I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. And we won the match 5-3, and I got they call it most valuable player. I got the man of the match award.
Oh.
And after that, I thought, well, if nothing else, to play against a team that had Pele, Beckenbauer, fullback Carlos Alberto, Kinaglia. That was.
Have you still got that award, Gordon? Have you still got that award?
Yes.
Whoa.
But I'll give you my address after.
Yeah.
Mate, my old mate Gordon. I'm telling you, for donkey years, mate. Surely you can pass me a little bit of plastic across the
What an
table.
incredible claim to fame that is. What an incredible claim to fame. Absolutely fantastic. I suppose
Gordon, sorry, Chris. Gordon, just before you do that, explain to the kids today, right, the Clares and the younger ones, yeah, what the 70s was actually like as a footballer. We were in there 35 minutes before the game would start, and we'd be singing like it was mad. It was absolutely crazy. And now there was more atmosphere on the moon than there is at St Andrews at the minute.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but there was, as you say, I've just somebody just sent me a shot of Sky Sports when talking about the 70s compared to now, and the pitches were, of course, the baseball ground was known for it, but the pitches, it just got used to it, really. And the 70s was a difficult time, wasn't it, for everybody to get through, and then coming through, blimey, to the 80s, we'd not got rid of all the behaviour, we'd had all the tragedies. So quite seriously, you know, when I did retire and started the job with the PFA, the first job really was to try and make sure we got the game cleaned up, really. It was being used by a lot of political extremists, and, you know, the disasters we had in the 80s, and my friend, and of course, you know him, Howard Kendall, they'd won the league with Everton after getting Andy Gray and what have you, and they couldn't get into Europe because we were banned from Europe. So to have the meetings with the likes of Lord Justice Taylor, and the police weren't even sending information from London to Manchester when the same troublemakers were causing trouble, and there wasn't a national network. So we got, as you know, we got all-seater stadiums. Closed circuit television was really, a major player. We tried to clean the game up and make it, all the politicians wrote us off in the 80s, if you remember. Margaret Thatcher was going to introduce identity cards to even get into a game, and football blamed the government and government blamed football, when in the end I thought, as usual, we've all got to work together because it's our biggest game. It's part of the tapestry of our life, and we've got to clean it up. And I think we made big strides in the 80s, so that by the 90s, unbelievably, your politicians like Tony Blair wanted to claim they were the biggest football fan ever,
Yeah.
I'm not his biggest fan, I must admit. But hey ho. Cleaning the game up has been fundamental in what we've got now. And again, the tragedies are the tragedies. We can't go back. We can't change time run. We cannot. I think we've learned a massive amount from them with all-seater stadium. Now, St Andrews is going to have a safe standing area in the Tilton. Isn't it about time we now, as football fans, got treated by the authorities and by the governing bodies as human beings?
Well, I mean, the difference now, I hear what you say, but as it was then, even when I just retired, taking my sons to go to Bury, where I used to play, finish my career, and they were playing Blackpool, and the police were letting the fans get on with it and have a major fight on the car park. It was quite horrendous, and no place where you'd even think of having women or your children to go with you. So there has been a lot of progress made, and I think there is that sensitive issue about if you have standing again and something goes wrong, you've still got Hillsborough to think about. I'm just reminded when Newcastle United played at Sheffield, though, they hadn't really learnt a lesson because there was problems. There was problems then, and I do remember at the time, before that game at Hillsborough against Forest, Peter Robinson, who was the secretary at Liverpool, rang me up. I was with the PFA, and he said, "Gordon, I'm really worried about the forthcoming semi-final. We had trouble last year. They've put us in at that same Leppings Road end, and could you please ring Graham Kelly at the FA and to tell him to change it?" And I said, "Well, I'll do my best." And I rang up Graham Kelly, and he said, "Well, I'm sorry, Gordon, I can't do anything." I said, "Well, that's Peter Robinson. He's experienced last year. He knows the potential trouble again, and it's just not, it's not right. It's not big enough." And then he said, "Well, we can't do anything at all about it. The police are totally in charge of safety." And it reminded me when, of course, Liverpool were in the final at Paris. You can't just blame the police. You've got to look to the people who organised the game. At UEFA, it was in Paris, and the FA organised it in England. And that's why, they needed to take quite a number of seats out there. And it is up to the game to organise, as it has a duty of care, as you're saying, to spectators, the same as a theatre does, if it's an orchestra playing or
anywhere, it doesn't matter what.
It's the same everywhere. And normally in business, it's the duty of care to the customer has to be top of the list.
Craig, I hope you're keeping note of all the questions that are coming in for Gordon, because there's tons of them. So maybe,
and I guess just to go back a little bit, actually. So Gordon, looking back on your time at Birmingham, and I will say my dad was a massive fan of yours whilst being down there on the old Cop, and said many a time seeing you up and down that wing was just superb. And
shall we sing the song? Gordon Taylor. Carry on.
You can remember it, Chris.
Yeah, no, I can. Unfortunately, I can.
Well, I tell you what, I'd not been back for years, of course, after leaving in 76 and being back the other day for the Birmingham game and walking around the ground, and the number of people who were shouting out and remembered times when I was playing. I thought, blimey, Charlie, it's really like coming home.
Gordon,
have a good day.
Coming home, because you're part of our lives. You're part of our fabric. You're part of our growing up, right? True. and you appeared on our football ground. Of course it's coming home. You're one of us.
Yeah.
You're blue through and through. You played for us. You scored for us. You defended for us. You put your body on the line for us, right? And that wing, my goodness me, when you were in front of that cop and you were firing down that wing, it was like something else. It was special.
Yeah.
You're revered at St Andrews.
Yeah. Sorry, Craig, I interject.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I think 166 turnout for Birmingham, 9 goals, I believe, during your time at the club between 1970 and 76. So it's a great time, and we know from seeing.
Well, I always remember one that should have been allowed and wasn't, not from me, but from Bob Hatton when we played Liverpool away, having just got promoted, and we went 3. I managed to get the first one, then knocked one in. Bob Latchford knocked it down for Bobby Hope, and then anyway we were like 3-1 up. Then they got level 3-3. Then I put in a perfectly good cross for Bob Hatton, and the referee gave a foul, and it was the Liverpool centre half Trevor Staunton, who was the deputy centre half, who hit Ray Clements, and the referee gave the free kick the wrong way, and then from the free kick. Well, Keegan touched it onto Toshak and they won 4-3, but it was we were really robbed.
Oh, that was a game and a half. I remember it on Match of the Day, that was. And
we've had many injustices. Many.
We got beat 4-3. Anyway, we did beat Liverpool, but it wasn't the same as beating them at Liverpool, and we were robbed that day.
Yeah.
Actually, that leads.
But we had some great last minute games, with the one that got us promotion, and then the one that kept us up. I can remember knocking a free kick in for Kenny Burns against Norwich, and it was as though we'd won the league. And then mine just stayed up. I love my time there, and quite seriously, I did. I think the crowd's great, and I love the supporters. I
was on the pitch that day after Norwich.
It was a fabulous
glorious matches, which I emptied out, nicked a bit of turf. I had it for years, and I've lost it. I ain't got it anymore. So.
Yeah, I think everybody was on the pitch then. I think I was on the tin roof.
Man,
on the tin roof, I was.
Oh my God! What a noise! It was a crescendo. Yeah. You know, it was taking the roof off St Andrews. It really was, and it was all over like Central News with Gary Newbon and one thing and all that. And it was just one of those moments that you'll never ever forget if you was there. Not ever. The joy, the elation. We are the only football team in the world that can celebrate staying up like somebody else winning the Champions League. We are up on the champ.
Craig.
Yeah, Gordon, it's interesting. One of the questions that came through, actually, as you were talking about there, actually being robbed by a referee, was nowadays, what do you think of the type of play and the way the game has changed? And do you think the referees actually now, along with VAR, interfere too much, and therefore the game has become soft?
I always worried when they talked about VAR. I thought it was a good thing for deciding whether the ball was over the line for a goal or not. But once you start bringing it into pretty well every area of the pitch and what have you, I think it's stopped a lot of the instant, happiness that a goal brings. And I can remember being at different grounds when they've had to wait, and sometimes they think they've won a major game and it turns out they've not. And it stopped a lot of that enjoyment. And the only trouble is it sounds like you're a bit of a dinosaur if you put your head in the sand and say, no, we can't have that. When you've seen it with cricket and you see it with tennis, and it's the modern age. But I don't know. I also know when I see the sort of football these days, everybody's trying to play it out from the back and knock it across the area. I can remember Kenny Burns saying to me, he did that once, and Brian Clough said, if you ever do that again, you never play for me again. Playing a ball square across the penalty area, because it's like thin ice and an accident waiting to happen. And these days, there's so many teams do that. I mean, you can say, well, you can play direct football too much, but you can also play it too much without. As a winger, I'm just on the doorstep of Burnley, and I mean, he's done a great job, Vincent Kompany, and he's brought a whole new team together. But he's got 2 brilliant flankmen, and to see wingers going down a wing, putting across good balls that just need touching in, I think it's one of the finest sights in the game.
Excellent. Bo Brumley's come to make a weekly appearance on the Tilton Talk Show. There she is. Off she gets.
He's a bonny cat.
Bo Brumley, her name is.
Go on, Craig.
Gordon, one of the other questions, and he's just following on from where you were talking about cleaning up the game, really. And Nigel Manor sent an interesting message through, which was Birmingham obviously had a bit of a reputation with fans and some of the trouble at the time. So did you ever have to deal with the Zulus?
There was a death at Birmingham, wasn't there?
Mm-hmm. It's Leeds, 1975. I believe.
Death at Birmingham. There's a terrible fire at Bradford. We had, major incidents. We were banned. We were out of Europe. It did need a national coordinated response. And I think the genuine football followers and football lovers were behind that. And I think they've been pleased with what they've seen. And I know it's always pleased people to be able to stand up, but having all-seater stadiums meant that the real culprits could be easily identified. And from that point of view, with closed-circuit cameras, the game did need that. And now whether it's made enough progress to look at safe standing, you're always mindful of what can happen. Sometimes it's, when the European final was guilty of not even holding that properly with the UEFA. I think we need to be quite mindful of that as well.
I get that, but you know something? Now I'm more happy to sit at St Andrews with my son and my granddaughter than I would have been in 1976, 1974, 1975. It's a different world now. It is a different world. A lot of work, a lot of progress has been made, and but you know what? We obviously the big game for us, as you well know, is them up at B6 up the road, right? When they come to our place, and we had West Midlands Police Footballing Unit coming board, right? And we were chatting to them, and they said they would come back after the game and we would re-review it, yeah. And some things happened that our supporters and certainly we weren't happy about. Well, they drafted a lot of police officers in from Wales, who number one don't get and understand what Birmingham City versus that team is like. Right. And number two, they just waded in. Right. And they admitted it. And they said, we will never, ever do that again. Never. Now, that's putting your hands up and saying, we got it wrong.
Well, we've seen what's happened down with the Metropolitan Police. We've got to be careful thinking that having more police naturally means a safer, more caring society. It's the police at times need looking at, because one of the major changes when you said about, I remember terrible really in the 70s, that the way that football fans were just frog marched from the station to the ground. It was like, you thought you were back in fascist Germany or God knows where, the way that football supporters were treated. That needed to be changed. And I think hopefully, that's where we're at on what we're doing. But it does need good stewarding, and I think it needs safe areas, and I think it's good for all clubs. That I wanted, my time at the PFA, to make sure that there was a corporate responsibility for a club with its community programs to reach out to everybody in the city or the town, wherever they were, to let them know, because football is the one sport. It's sort of embodied in our culture, but it is the one place where most members of a community get together on a regular basis, and it's capable of making a big improvement to people's lives. And I think it shouldn't just be a football club where if you're winning, more people come than if you're losing. It needs to be that hub of a wheel that can do so much for good in a city.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot more to do, believe me. There's an awful lot more to do. And
I honestly, if you're asking me about Midlands folk, I thought they were brilliant. I was down there 6 years, and it was one of the best times of my life.
Craig, do you want to take note of some of the questions and we come back to them?
I've got just one more before we move on. I think Martin Swinsko has said, can we ask Gordon, what do you actually feel like after the semi-final defeat at Main Road? Got over it, and he's still bitter and gutted. Still doesn't like Fulham to this day. So,
God bless him.
How did it make you feel?
Well, you've just got to get over something that happened 48 years, 2 months 3 hours, 5 minutes, 60 seconds. How do I feel?
Not that you're counting.
I've never felt as bad as in all my life. It was like my dad was waiting outside. I couldn't believe it. I thought I'd scored. Peter Mellor had an absolute blinder in the semi-final, and then when it got to the final against West Ham, and I'd been told before the semi-final, not to worry, you'll get to the final. I've had a dream, and Taylor scores 2 goals in the final. I thought, that's a bit far-fetched. And my God, he did, but he was playing with West Ham when they beat Alan Taylor. But that night at Main Road, I came out of the ground, and it was like, it was dark, it was blowing, it was newspapers, programmes, and there was the Fulham coach with Bobby Moore, Mullery, and Tommy Trinder, the chairman, all champagne bottles going off, and my dad and my uncle, who lived nearby in Ashton-under-Lyne, they were waiting for me, and I couldn't speak. I was so gutted, because if there was one thing I wanted from my dad, it was to play in a cup final, and we'd had the chance for Birmingham, of course, against Leeds when I played all the games. Then he left me out for the semi-final against Leeds in our promotion year. And then I got on as a sub when we were about 3-0 down with 2 minutes to go. So, I told Freddie Goodwin, I'm not Superman, got it there. But with Fulham, we really thought we had a chance because we were the top division team, but they did have some good experience in there. But the way the goal and the ricochet with John Mitchell, Dave Latchford, it ricocheted off him. I can see it now. And Joe Gallagher running back, and then I thought he'll clear it, and he slipped. And it was, no, it's not the sort of thing you forget, because if there was, not a journeyman player, but it's always difficult to play for your country. But I thought to win the FA Cup's always meant a lot to us ever since. The very first final I saw when I was born in 44, and then the first final I saw was on black and white TV, the Matthews final in 1953 against Bolton Wanderers, and then saw every final since. I've seen every final since then, and like when Bolton beat Man United in 58, and you just know the teams, like your Birmingham teams when they played City, but with Bolton, it was Hopkinson, Artle Banks, Henning, Higgins, Edwards, Birch, Stevens, Lofthouse, Barry Holden. They just ran, if you were a fan, you knew the team, and you knew who'd won the cup and how many. And I was in a council estate, and we used to have Charles Buchan's Football Monthly, and we'd either be playing football or getting autographs. And the idea was, talking about competitions and things, was to who could get most autographs in their Charles Buchan's soccer gift book. And that was life. It was just all football. So to actually play, then my local club was Hurst Wesleyans. You had to go to Sunday school. Then they became Ashton Amateurs. Then they became Curzon Ashton. And they've made the National League North. And I've seen them when they've played and beaten Exeter. They beat Exeter City in the first round of the FA Cup. And this year they played Cambridge in the first round. And then they drew at Cambridge and got knocked out with penalties. The way our system works, not just the 4 leagues at the top, but then National League North and South. I don't know a country in the world, as small an island like we are, that has the highest aggregate attendances in the world. The other week, 2 teams from Division 1, Bolton and Plymouth, played in the Papa John's final at Wembley. There were 79,000.
Yeah, that was a great crowd.
The biggest crowd in the whole of Europe. Yeah. And that was testimony to how we've sort of looked at. And my time with the PFA, when the Premier League started, everybody thought that's the end of the Football League. But I played in America, and there was the playoff system, and that kept interest, and it has kept interest, and that's what we introduced, and different things like that, because we managed to keep the Football League going. It's just for crowds, for players. It's just it's a very special part of our life, football, and to be a part of that, and to be a part of that with the clubs I've been to, has made me feel very privileged.
Well, to be a part of it as a supporter has made me feel very privileged. Right, to be part of, to do this, I have met that many people. You've named Dr. Q there. Dave Latchford was in the studio a few months ago. Big Joe 2 or 3 times, and I've met people and spoken to people. I would never, ever have thought that my life would entail that. And it's been such a pleasure over the last 7 years to do this. None of us get paid for this, Gordon, by the way. None of us, not one. You're certainly.
Well, I'm not asking a fee either.
And you're certainly not going to. Right, I'm just going to change tack for a couple of minutes. Claire, my little flower. Come on, tell us about your holiday. You've got 3 minutes, 12 seconds.
It was cold.
9.
It was cold.
Hello.
Yeah, it was good. It was all right, to be fair.
Yeah.
Went to Poland, went to all the concentration camps. It was an eye-opener, to be fair. I wouldn't say it was a fun holiday. It was an educational one. But yeah, it was good.
Well, good.
Did you get caught up in the storms?
Pardon?
Did you get caught up in the storms?
No. We did have a bit of snow, but the Polish
Snow?
was lovely. Yeah,
Well, hang on.
It is cold
Were you
there.
in Florida?
Pardon?
Were you in Florida?
No, I went to Poland.
Oh.
Where did you get that from, Nick?
Poland, there's no concentration
there's no
camps in
No, I
Florida.
do know. I'm taking the risk, honestly.
I went to Auschwitz and Birkenau.
Auschwitz and Birkenau. Now, I went there a few years ago, as everybody knows. Every time I mention those 2 words, I promise you, the only 2 things that do it for me, Birmingham Football Club, are those 2 words. What an experience.
Mark,
Life changing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
it was an eye-opener, but
I think
I was glad to be back.
he came.
Came back to the Sunderland game at the weekend.
Good interjection. Good interjection.
Yeah.
Obviously, after I'm not even going to call it a game against Stoke. I mean, that was the most boring thing
Boring.
I have seen for a long time.
That's horrendous.
But on to the weekend, and fair to say, disappointed in terms of defending. But what a superb goal for Birmingham, and nice to see George Hall get on the score sheet as well. So I guess, Claire, I can't ask you whether you went, because I know this was your first weekend for a very long time where you haven't been. I am disgusted. I think it's terrible. But I think you watched the game. So thoughts on Saturday?
I think we were lucky to leave with a draw. It's just typical that the defending, sometimes we are a bit lacklustre or we just switch off, especially the first goal. I generally think Chong was the best player.
Brilliant.
I think he actually showed a little bit of why we wanted him in the first place. Just wish he played like that every week, to be honest. Kadra again had a good game. I think, again, did he leave the subs till too late to change it or to add a little bit more? So when Jordan James came on, we looked different. Again, Jukovic, he played well. You bring Scott Hogan on. You take Kadra off, which means that Diallo. So I had to do a little bit for the Sunderland fans thing. I had to do a write-up, and I spoke about the Diallo. And he's a good player. He's somebody that I hope we might even go for, depending on, how he is at Man United, because he's a good player. He's got pace, he's got trickery. It was a typical Blues performance. You think, oh, we're 1-0 up, this is great. And then they hit a goal, and then we can't hold on. That's our problem. We don't either go for it or we don't hold.
I don't think you can take away how good those 2 Sunderland goals were. That they were good.
But poor defending, though. If you know he's left-footed, you shove him down the right. And we went, go on then. And then Hannibal turned his back, and we were against 10 men. And it's like, I don't know, Eustace is kind of a bit too safe for me sometimes.
How many times
Go for it.
Yeah.
But
what time did you watch the game?
I did watch the game, yeah, and the 3 blokes that I slaughtered the week from the Stoke game, i.e. Chong, Bakuna, and Hall, were the star men. So they obviously listened to me, but they did. I mean, the goal was it was a good team goal. I mean, how many times have we seen teams? Thinking about the Norwich game against Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough scored 5 goals from in the 6-yard box. 5. Now, we haven't scored 5 all season like that, but we did on Saturday, which was very pleasing. You know, to cut a team to bits and finish up with a 8-yard tap in. That's good football, and that was good. The only thing I'd argue with Claire was they didn't score till we made the substitutes. So, you know, you can't win, really, can you? The manager was late, or was it too early? It's one of them things. I agree.
Absolutely, you cannot decide for that, can you? Is he too late? Is he too early? You can't. In football, that manager has to make that decision at that split moment in time, right? And that's his decision, and he has to stand by it. And I think Eustace does stand by it, right? I enjoyed what I saw against Sunderland, but I went to the Stoke game and I have never been so bored in all my life. Never. It was like, what am I doing here?
I think it's fair to say.
Where am I?
So, there's 2 teams that set the stall out from the first kick of the ball, really.
Both were not safe, do you think, Craig?
I don't think it was a case of safety. I think it was just a case of neither of them wanted to lose. So
it was beach mode, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You know, a ball held very much in either half. There was very, very little across the midfield from either team, and arguably, you know, I don't think either team deserved to walk away with a loss on the day, but it's that typical end of season type of game where now, you know, had we have taken the points across the past 2 games, well and truly be safe. And going into Blackpool at the weekend, you'd think, wow, you know what I mean? He's got his opportunity now to try a few things out. Whilst I don't think we'll go down, we're still not mathematically safe. We need those extra points. Hopefully we'll gain those tomorrow evening. But it was
tomorrow. Tough game tomorrow.
Very tough game.
Are you going, Claire?
No, I've got work the next day. I'm not striking.
She's not striking on Wednesday, otherwise she's going there.
You would if you could. You would if you could. You would if you could.
But I think, by the way, Gordon. In a spare time. And a hospital porter.
With Sunderland as well, I think the other thing was the fact, you know, they are actually a decent side.
Very
you know,
well
they've done really well this season for me. Set up beautifully as a team. You know, they knew our weaknesses, and you made sure that they were going after them. And I do agree. I think after the substitutions, that's where we saw more. For me, it makes a change. We normally see a strengthening in the Birmingham side when the subs happen, but we were definitely weaker after those changes were made, and it shows the holes as well for me that have got to be filled across the summer and the areas that we need to strengthen on. And actually, again, nice little segue, but important announcements being made by the club over the past few days, and the excitement being built again halfway through last week with the announcement of the purchases of the club.
Potential purchases.
Well, I think I'm going to say purchases because I think we're a lot further along than necessarily we all realise. And the feel-good factor of changing those words in the announcement from investor to purchaser made such a difference for me to everybody that I spoke to. And
but are they purchasing an investment?
They're purchasing the club.
I know it's cynical, but like, how many times have we been here?
Believe it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly, Claire. I'm with you 100%, mate. I promise you.
There's a big difference with this one for me. It's been kept quiet. You know, it's been done the right way, and you know, EFL.
Sorry about that.
But you again, Chris.
Yes,
you kept on his bucket.
The EFL.
All I will say, I mean, I just always felt when people said about mean, going to Birmingham, I've been at Bolton 10 years and was desperate for a move. And I went down there, and Freddie Goodwin said, well, I don't really want to get you, but Clifford Coombs saw us play up at Bolton, and you won 3-0. Roger Hunt from Liverpool scored 3, and I'd knocked in the crosses. So he says, I have to buy you. I said, well, I think you'll find I'll be a decent value. It's only 15 grand. He always said, oh, well, you're the best value for money I ever bought. I thought, well, that's not saying a lot, because they got the money back when I went to Blackburn. But I did feel with the Coombs family, they were genuinely interested at that time in the club, and we know the Wisemans always have been. And I know you say it's nothing to do with the players; you've just got to play, but it is. You know, if your owners genuinely believe in the club and the club doing well, and it makes a heck of a difference. And I just feel, from a player's point of view, sometimes we've had some real bad pennies in the game, and I know from the PFA. Look at the difference with Bolton now. The previous owner at Bolton Wanderers nearly ran it down, and they really needed a lot of help to come alive again. And they have come alive, and they're showing the signs, and they're doing well. And I just feel that's just what it needs at Birmingham. Somebody who genuinely believes in the club. You're the second city in the country. You've got a great fan core base, and I just feel, again, it's not dissimilar to 1970, when I remember going back to Bolton Wanderers, and the trainer, Bert Sprost, and he said, have you signed, Gordon? Have you signed? I said, yeah, but I thought it was about time I had a change. He said, oh, I'm really pleased. I went, oh, bloody hell, Bert. That was Bert Sprost, and he played with England, and he used to tell us the tales. He had to give the Nazi salute in the 30s.
Yeah.
He played with Man City, he played with Leeds, and he said, oh, Gordon, he said, I'm really sorry. Of course, I'm really sorry to lose you. But my wife, Agnes, just asked me this morning, because it was December, would we be getting Christmas turkeys again for all the staff? And I had to tell her that I'd asked Bill Riddon, and he said, only if we sell Gordon Taylor to Birmingham. So now we've all got turkeys. Well, if you can make sure I get one as well, Bert, please, that would be great. Yeah.
Oh, we're good for something then.
Yeah, it was good for something. Christmas turkeys, 1990. Yeah, they were that desperate. They were that desperate. Got to stop the turkeys.
Without a forum like this, right, and without stories like that, they would be lost in time, right?
Yeah.
We've now got that recorded forever. And in 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years' time, somebody can come and click on this and listen to that story and understand just what football really used to be like back in the day proper.
Gordon, one of the questions, actually, just linked to what you've mentioned there about, having owners that love the clubs and want to take them forwards. One of the questions that came in was, as you were part of the PFA and are heading that up for the 40 years, which is just absolutely superb. But the question was, how much involvement, if any, did you really get with type of ownership of the clubs and the way things were taken forward?
So you knew with the way the players were treated exactly how the club was being run. You knew who was having a genuinely bad time, and I would advocate to my committee that we loan them money till they get out of trouble. And you'd be amazed how many clubs, the likes of Middlesbrough and Wolves and different clubs who are pretty big time now, who were in real trouble, in the day. And Plymouth Argyle doing well now, and we've had loans to them. I don't know whether we've got all that back yet, but we did. You can lend money on the basis that we weren't risking our money, because it's the players' money, but players need clubs and players need employers, and we had faith that the club would stay alive and they would still get the paybacks that they get from being in the Football League, where they distribute a share of television money, etc., etc. So the security was there if the club had a future. And as you know, we very rarely have lost a club. Before my day, Bob Lord had Accrington Stanley out of the league, but they got back. And during my time, we just lost Maidstone. But with when I was talking about saving the league, and I mentioned, and they had to bring in the playoffs because the first division used to have a quarter of all the money, then they had a half, then they had 3/4. Then it was inevitable they were going to break away. So we had to look after the league and try and think of things like the playoffs. But what we also did, if you remember as well, outside of the league, they used to even vote whether an outsider club could come in. And they would all get together in the fourth division and just not have people who deserve to be promoted and in there. So there is some real fresh water coming in as well from the National League, and you're seeing how that attracts money into clubs like Wrexham with the film stars. But nevertheless, you'd have to say they look really genuine lads who want to have a part of a bit of history. So it doesn't take much to know the genuine owners from those who are in it for the wrong reasons. And I would just hope that Birmingham have got owners who really believe in the city and the club and its potential. Never underestimate the strength of a crowd and playing in front of a crowd like you see at Birmingham, like you've talked about when we had those key games to just stay up in the first division. The crowd effect is fantastic. It was great. And it just the same as when we're playing down at Leyton Orient and needed to beat them. And you might well have heard the story, but I took a corner. Bob Latchford put it in. We had to win the game. And Millwall fans were at that game because they wanted us to lose. And Millwall fans invaded the pitch after we scored. And a fan pulled a knife out on me and Alan Campbell and said, if you win this match, you're going to get this after the match, as though that affected us. We won the game 1-0. We were all in the bath. We were having champagne. We were just having beers. We were relaxing. We'd got promoted. And then the loudspeaker came on and it said, please evacuate the ground, evacuate the ground. We've heard that a bomb is going to go off. And believe it or not, we didn't give a toss. And we were... and the next minute, as God's my judge, it went boom. And there was an incendiary device that they put in the stand that went off. Yeah.
Wow. Gordon, if you were in your old position, would you lend Birmingham City 10 million at the moment?
Never lent that much.
Well,
we never lent that much, but we did lend. I'm talking about maybe 10% of that to make a difference between getting over the line and saving the club and not saving the club. Because when you do your proper research into a club and you meet the people, you know those people who deserve a chance and who have got a chance. And you know also, if you have a good look, the con merchants.
You don't have to answer this next question. How did Carson Young pass the fit and proper persons test? A hairdresser from China, a hairdresser.
Well, if you're asking me that, I mean, what I've said with the Football League is they have to have an independent, they have to need a measure of independence. It shouldn't be an old favours, an old pals act, or whatever you call it. It needs to be a strong, independent judgment on clubs and proper audits done and clubs saved from themselves, to tell you the truth, because virtually all owners become supporters and they can, reach for the sky and then end up with the parachute being pricked.
Who failed Birmingham City Football Club?
But I mean, it's all about dreams. That's what makes the club alive. I'm talking to you before about the need to have promotion and relegation, not like in the USA, where they all know it's going to be the same system year after year, if you like. But where we try and promote the Premier League, for all its money, isn't bad for trying to spread the money out and to try and keep it as competitive as possible. But even now, you see now, it's sovereign state money that's buying and owning clubs like Manchester City, and Paris Saint-Germain. So it's getting harder and harder to really keep that competitiveness. But the idea of sport is for it to be uncertain. It's going to lose all its attraction if every match you go to, the result or how it's going to end before you get there. So. All I'm saying is that Birmingham, when you look at other clubs and other core supporters and see what some of these smaller clubs have done, there's no reason why Birmingham shouldn't be rising to the top again.
But we're not. So who failed?
You're not at the moment.
Who failed Birmingham City Football Club in the Carson Young deal?
Who did?
And I know it's a hard
All that
question.
$1 million
I do
question
know.
that is, Nick.
Yeah.
Hang on,
It
mate.
is, yeah.
Hang on.
Don't think we'll ever know, will we?
We won't know. Well, Claire, you wanted to come in, Claire?
I think part of it is about where we are now and how we're going to go forward, really. And I think, it's no use crying over spilt milk from that point of view. I'm talking.
Here's when somebody's taken 11 years out of my life.
Gordon, would you know that you said about giving clubs money? Would you trust our owners now with any of the money if you were going to give them? Would you give it to them?
I think it's a serious question, and it's a serious question asked of me. And if I was at the PFA, we would want to know the ins and outs. And that would be not just for our benefit, but for the benefit of all the supporters of the club.
Yeah.
Good answer. My mum is impressed with that answer. She's like,
Let's give his mama. Mama, give me.
That's how you've got to do it, because the fans have got every right to know. It's the fans, in a way, they own the club. And it's about being as public as you can with the fans so they know where you're standing.
There's been some further great questions that have come in. So just to run through a few of them here, Gordon. So the first one, you've mentioned actually your last club being Bury, and Dave Twiner said, what were your thoughts on Bury's demise, seeing that it was your last club? And you've obviously mentioned already you tried to help.
I was very upset, and I'm reminded when Man City beat Watford in the final, they said, it's a record score. Bury won the cup in the beginning of the 20th century, and I got the medal in a lot of the archives I've built up and the memorabilia with the PFA's collection. So it was a club close to my heart, and my wife's from Bury as well, just down the road from Gig Lane. So I was a frequent visitor and played for the club, and I've done my best, level best. I'm a member of the association that's been formed since they went bust, when the owners, you see, in a way, the league, again, when I talked about being independent and getting in there, the Football League allowed Bury to get promoted when they hadn't paid the players' wages and they hadn't paid the clubs who they'd bought players off. And they allowed them to be promoted, which affects, once you start affecting the competitive nature of any competition, then there needs to be big questions asked. But I've seen my local team, Clitheroe, playing the FA Cup with the other Bury team that's playing on a borrowed ground at the moment, Radcliffe Borough. And when you think Gig Lane is a classic quality ground. So I've worked to try to get them to combine, and I'm pleased to say they are doing now. So the future is starting to look bright for them again, because I think it'd be a real crying shame to lose Bury from the league.
Gordon, when I saw that gentleman in his flat cap on the TV crying, I joined him. I promise you, I joined him, because somebody and something has just taken away that man's whole life's worth of memories, gone, eradicated. And that's what I hate about our owners. Is that, the last 11, we won the Carling Cup final. Birmingham City winning a major trophy.
Yeah. Craig?
And
then from then to now, demise.
And you mentioned there about stadiums, actually, which links again nicely into another question that came in, which was during your time in the PFA, we obviously had the reform, or should we say rebuilding of Wembley Stadium. And Nigel Mann has asked, did you have any say in the Wembley Stadium decisions? Were you involved in any of the negotiations which ultimately swayed it away from the Midlands as well?
No, I didn't. That's purely FA matter. I wasn't on the FA council, and nobody more than me knows how difficult it is getting down to Wembley. You kind of park your car and there's all building there. It just does seem to be that holy grail that they won't move from Wembley. I was also struck, though, talking about, you had the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, same as we did in Manchester. Not the Olympics, but it was still an opportunity to Birmingham show what it's made of.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what people said, I thought it really showed Birmingham in a really good light.
Absolutely.
I was very, very pleased and proud of that. And I just feel that when I came just the other week and I went to every section of ground, the feeling from supporters was very warm. They were loving the occasions. There were so many different rooms and bars to talk to everybody. But it does need that the whole ground, when there were areas that aren't being used, it does need proper money spent on the infrastructure and a stadium worthy of being the second city in the country.
It's 20 odd years old, Gordon. It's 20 odd years old. And I've seen photographs and videos of the underneath that stadium, and it's completely and utterly rotten after 20 years.
I know, and that's why it needs good money. I mean, you don't want people saying, oh, you spent it all on the stadium, we've got a bad team, but neither do you want a really good team, and you've not looked after the spectators, because that's what we're talking about. And if you want to talk about it, it's spectators and the comfort and a top quality stadium, and not forget that, you know, you've got to, the next steps, get a top quality team on the pitch for them to look at.
When Gold and Sullivan put that stadium together, what how long are we talking about? 30 years ago, perhaps? 30 years ago. Right. And I was like, what? You're going to take my Tilton Road down? You're going to take my cop down? Where I've stood with my dad and my family and my cousins and my sisters and my brothers, and I've had my hair on up there every single week. And then all of a sudden it transformed into this beautiful blue and white stadium, which is worthy. I mean, those three sides, they're worthy of any Premier League team. They are, right? The main stand, sorry, Ray, has got to go as soon as possible. But, like, this is just how I look, right? Do you know the Kop? When the sun shines through the Kop and there's a shadow on the floor, the reason there's a shadow on the floor is because the builders at the time, and Birmingham City apparently won an award for this, right? There should be no shadow on that floor, right? But they put all of the anti-shadow stuff upside down when they built it. Look into it. I promise you it's true.
That's true, mate,
right?
yeah.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Alan.
It's crazy.
And we won an award.
We've won a flipping award for it, and we've still got a shadow. Now I'm going to go on to catering. Oh, my God, Birmingham City, you are a disgrace.
Yeah.
You are a complete and utter disgrace. When I send my other half off to get a gourmet sausage, and she comes back with one of those 10-pence little sausages you get out, you are disgraceful.
I've got to admit, Nick, I saw your picture, and I was stood by that van.
And you was what?
I was stood by the van and the food that you're talking about, and your picture was totally different to what they were serving, so I don't know where you
Well, I'm awfully sorry, but that's what she was.
Totally different. Like,
perhaps I just didn't
literally,
like it.
I was there, and I saw it on my phone, and my friend had one, and I was like, I don't know where they've been.
I think he brought it with him.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
where I was, Claire, bar 8, come out of bar 8, turn left, and
Yeah.
it said gourmet food on the top of this thing. I said, get in there, you'll get good food down there, my dear.
But I just don't go there again. Just go and get a pie. Do you know what? I've got
Well, you know what?
No, I'm sorry.
No.
I had the chips and they were brilliant.
Get
I'm with Claire. I have a pie every week.
Pay
Pies are lovely.
£4.53 or whatever. £4.55.
On
Not
to-
to have a little sausage in a bun that was that dry it just broke in half.
Have one from inside the ground or go to Fat Snags and then you'll get a perfect sausage.
Sausage.
Get the street food. Street food's lovely.
Back to the football side of things.
I went to a lot of supporters club rooms. I've never been in all my time at the Blues. I never visited every stand. And the other week I went around every stand and saw so many places where people were eating, drinking, enjoying it. And I couldn't believe it. I thought it was really good atmosphere. Yeah.
Yeah, we got posh food now, Gordon. Posh food.
Yeah.
We sell posh food there.
Street food.
Apart from that,
Street food.
What I said the other half, hey-ho.
Yeah.
On the footballing side of things as well, and again, it's a question that's coming. PFA's involvement with the ladies' game, and a massive shout out to Birmingham at the moment. Huge positive run they're on. You know, let's keep this positive momentum going because we can still get that promotion. But what involvement did the PFA have, or do they have?
Straight away in 2005, Fulham were the first club to bring in professionalism for the women, and we got involved then and encouraged them to join the PFA and have all the clubs in the top division as members. And then we've also helped clubs outside of the top division if they've had injury problems and need help or help for operations during my time, because I feel I wasn't surprised. I was very pleased that they won the Euros and they deserved it. And we had Steph Houghton on. We had Steph Houghton on the management committee of the PFA, and together with the other lady who's now manages in America, who managed Man United at the time. So I just felt it's got to be the way ahead. And when schools and football clubs are asking for help from the Football Foundation, which uses the money from the pools, you want to know the diversity record. You want to know, are they going to provide football for women as well as men? And is it going to be for the use of the community? And then that dictates the grant. So that's very much on the forefront of everybody's. Well, certainly it was at the forefront of my mind. I hope it's at the forefront of my success at the PFA as well.
Have you heard anything, Gordon? Sorry, Craig. I've heard a rumour about the women's game that they want to cut off the WSL to the teams that are already there. They were talking about it the other day. The Chelsea manager, I can't remember what her name is, it's just gone out of my head. Emma Hayes was saying about, to keep it competitive and things like that. Obviously, at the moment, there isn't really much, one goes up and then they have to then play each other from the North and South League. I don't know, what was your feelings about that? I've only heard rumours of it.
It would be. It's a good question, because I believe, healthy competitive game is about encouraging promotion and relegation. It's that free flow and encouraging teams to set up and believe they can come to the very top. We've seen it in football with the likes of Wimbledon and Watford in Elton John's day. I saw it with Blackburn Rovers when suddenly Jack Walker came into town and put his money behind the town where he grew up, and suddenly you have a magic carpet ride, and that can apply for women's football as well as men's.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gordon. Going back to your Blues days, if you get any sort of mementos or souvenirs you kept from your playing days of Blues, do you want
to give them to me?
Yeah, I've got a trophy. So I've got a trophy up here, which I think might be one of very few in the game for coming third in the FA Cup when we beat.
Oh, is that like the third place playoff?
Yeah, right, okay.
Third place playoff. We played.
I thought you was going to say it was the Aston Villa Catering Award then for a minute.
I don't think they don't. We
played Stoke for the third place playoff in 1972, wasn't it? Yeah, 72. And I've got a tankard somewhere here.
So when did they stop the third place playoffs?
I think they began it and finished it that year.
So
it's going to be one hell of a unique piece of kit.
So that's even more valuable than ever now.
Yeah.
I think you should give that us.
I think you should get that on Antique Roach.
Yeah, that's right.
I would have. I'm just looking at what I've got. I would have liked to give you more than that.
Oh, crikey!
Have you got your sort code?
I would have loved nothing better than giving you an FA Cup winners medal to have on show.
Oh yeah.
Well, funnily enough, can I just tell you a story?
Yeah, of course.
When I was a youngster at Ashton-under-Lyne, and a council house estate, and there was a recreation ground. And as I said before to you, we play if it was holidays, morning, afternoon. If it was school times, we used to nick to the school ground at night. But we're all playing away, coats down for goals. And then suddenly, a bit like Watership Down, the builders started coming in and building on it. and we were reduced to a smaller and smaller area. And then one day, one of the bricklayers came in, and he said, "I've just seen all you lads. You're here, even before we come, and you're here even when we're going away." And he said, "I need to show you this from," and he got a medal out that belonged to his dad. Sure, it was his dad, not his granddad. That his dad, and it was. We had a look at the medal, and it was Blackburn Rovers in 1928, and his father he was called John Roscamp, and he scored the quickest goal at Wembley in a cup final.
Wow.
And he scored for Blackburn Rovers, but the family had brought it over, and what he said was, "I hope one day one of you lads will get one of these." And of course, we never did, but I got 3 semi-finals. But the other day when I was at Blackburn Rovers, the family had brought that same medal over to put into a glass frame as you walk into Ewood Park. And I went to speak to the community club and the Oldham about the game when I was there, and they took me to see that, and I had my picture taken with it. So that was a bit of a full circle, really.
Wow, that is incredible. Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
Right, talking about
you have an OBE. What does OBE stand for? Is it Old Birmingham X or?
It's
I'm sorry.
Other buggers' efforts. I think it's an officer of the British Empire.
It is, yeah.
Right, so it's an order of the British Empire, yeah?
Order of the British Empire.
Okay. How were you nominated for that, and how did you know about it?
I didn't know I was nominated, but it did tie in with when we had a centenary year for the PFA. We were formed in 1907 in Manchester. The chairman of that first meeting was Billy Meredith, a well-known Welsh winger and a great player for Man City and Man United when they won their first ever FA Cup in 1909. I think Bristol City they beat, and it had gone to Gordon Browne apparently, and he'd approved it. He was the Prime Minister then. And so suddenly I get a letter to say you've been ordered the OBE for your efforts for football and charity, because the PFA runs a lot of charities as well. And we want to know if you'd be prepared to accept it. So I said, yeah, I'm pleased, but I'll accept it on behalf of not just myself, everybody at the PFA. For what we do.
But don't you think every Birmingham City fan should be given an OBE?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Well, I mean, in fairness, Prince Charles, who's now the king, said about time too, and I thought, well, yeah, we have helped the Prince's Trust as well. But anyway, that was that. It's there's a lot of people refuse them, but I thought that would be rude. It's nice to do.
People refuse OBEs.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Of course they do. Famously, the Beatles, didn't they? Yeah.
John Lennon did, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Craig, programmes.
Yeah, programmes. It's a bit of a topic that has arisen this afternoon, and for those that may or may not have seen it yet, look out for an email from the club in regards to whether programmes, being paper or e-programs, should actually continue, and your thoughts on them. I've got to say,
you're asking the wrong person with me, because I've still got the very first cutting involving me and football. I've still got my Charles Buchan's gift books. I've still got every autograph book. So, I mean, I've still got a programme of every match I played in. But if you ask my wife, she'd say, it's just a load of rubbish. I can't fit any more in. So
Gordon, sorry, stop there, Gordon. Bring the wife in. Let's talk to the wife. Come on.
Oh, no. When I left the PFA, I've had to organise 2 storage rooms in Great Harwood near here for all my stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I love programmes and love looking through them. Yeah,
I think this is the I guess the bone.
I know what these days they say everything's digital and it's on your phone and it's this and that, but I'm not good with digitization. I'm really sorry, and it's the same. I used to, I used to love ringing people and discussing issues, not sending emails, and not. I'm not an email person, and I'm not an email person by a new modern phone. I'd much rather talk to each other like this and talk to people on the phone. That's the way I am, and I don't want to change now.
Or going down the bottom of the Coventry Road and wait for the pink.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing better than the Saturday night
Sports Argus and the pink.
Exactly. And whether it's cricket or football or blimey, Ashton-on-Lyne, we even went to the Speedway on a Saturday night, Peter Craven and what have you at Bellevue. It was just non-stop sport. So
Bellevue, where was that? Was that Coventry?
No, it's up north. That's Manchester.
No, Bellevue is
in Manchester.
Is Manchester.
What was the one in Coventry? Because there used to be one at the right.
Bellevue Speedway. Yeah, Peter Craven was their star rider.
He was, yeah.
Did it Brandon was it?
Brandon.
Coventry.
Chris is a bit of a Speedway guru, by the way.
So Coventry's Brandon, yeah. Yeah, Coventry's Brandon.
So on this, I'd like to run a quick straw poll for our listeners, actually, and please as well encourage you all to fill in the survey that's come from the club so that the right decisions are made. But just a quick straw poll with everyone. Keep the programme as paper or not? Simple question, yes or no to paper. Please let us know on the shout box.
Yeah,
Just to let you know, it might be in the junk mail because I've just had mine.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Claire.
junk mail just to,
it might be it might be junk.
yeah.
Okay.
I wish I could read sometimes.
Right, Gordon, another controversial question, because I love asking controversial questions which you do not have to answer. Your thoughts on Sepp Blatter?
Hey?
He was, he was a little bit slippery. Once we got,
I love that word, slippery.
Yeah,
that's made my night, mate. I promise you.
He was. He liked to be diplomatic with everybody. He worked his way up from being secretary, of course, to being chairman. Avalanche had that job. He didn't like it when I had to take him on once or twice. When he gave me a chance to speak, then I would, and wouldn't sit down. He'd say, "Yes, we've heard enough now, Mr. Taylor." And I said, "No, I've not finished yet." Because when we got the Bosman decision, that was about freedom of contract in Europe, but not the world. And we said it has to be the world, otherwise we've got a big imbalance. And so we got that through. He liked to think he acknowledged players, but what he would like to do is pick out star players from each country and just the celebrities rather than the actual union that was the players' union in that country. So he was that sort of a person. I don't like talking bad about people, but it was.
I'm not asking you to, promise. I promise you, I'm not asking you.
It was. Yeah, you had to wake up early in the morning to make sure you were on your toes. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. That's enough.
Before we go on to your 1 to 11, Gordon, I'd just like to put out there, we started in the show with Mr. Hipkiss a version of start, sub, and sell.
Yes.
And just to put this out here now, it's tough. This is really is. But start, sub, and sell for today is Benno, Mike Taylor, or Ben Foster. Who would you sub and who would you sell?
I'm off to bed, mate. I'm off to bed, Craig. I promise you. There's no way can I answer that one.
It's a toughie, that one.
Can I just say my personal opinion?
No.
This is based purely on technical ability. I'd start Foster, I'd sub Taylor, and I'd sell Benno as much as I loved him.
I totally agree with you on that one.
Because you know what? Benno,
Mark, I've got Benno signed.
Fight!
I loved all three of them, but the thing is, Benno did it in the old second division and the championship. The other two have done it top level and international wise. And it's just one of them.
All right, Mark. Okay, we'll go with that one. Claire, I'll go with yours as well. Now,
I'd swap them around. I'd have Taylor rather than Foster for longevity. 18 national caps, 5 seasons or whatever it was with us, and he did get picked for the Premier League best 11 one year. So and he works for us now. So
Yeah, he does.
But then Foster got man of the match in the Carling Cup. What a horrible question. Who come up with this one?
I know. Somebody's actually agreed with Mark today as well. So I think some old drunk. I don't know where he's come from.
Where does Gil Merrick come in that then?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh well, he's in our Hall of Fame team, isn't he? He's our
Chris Browne, quickly. Last 15 minutes.
Okay, last 15 minutes. As we were talking about computers and digital downloads and technology, the last 15 is going to be computers, digital downloads, technology.
And technology. Here we go.
This
is where we have a laugh, Gordon. And what we do in the last 15 minutes, anybody can make a reference to anything to do with football. And those words that Chris has just come out, right? And believe me, sometimes I wet myself doing this on the show.
That's nothing to do with the show.
I have got plastic feet under my bum at the minute.
Yeah.
How about Nokia Zigic?
Nokia Zigic, good one, well done.
No, it's not as good as Mark Meredith, who has started.
I'm going Ryan Gigabytes.
Hey, good one, well done.
Mark Meredith has said Dealey had a PC.
I was waiting. Why have I been waiting for that one?
Well, in all four corners.
Oh, dear.
So, Gordon, if we could come over to yourself, we, as we do with all of our guests, we ask for the 1 to 11 of players that stood out when you've been at the club, and I've seen this in advance, and obviously before my era, but I've spoken to my dad, and he just simply went, "Wow, what a team!" So, over to yourself for the 1 to 11, please.
Right. It's not easy because in my time, Paul Cooper was a good young keeper and Mike Kelly, but I'd go with Dave Latchford.
Yes.
And I'd go with Dave Latchford. I know he's like his brother Pete Latchford had some goalkeeping blood in that family, as well as goal scoring blood. At right back, of course, there's the lad Tommy Carroll who played for his country, but Ray Martin made me feel very welcome when I went down to Birmingham, and I thought he was a class act, and I thought he was also a good captain. So Ray Martin had been my right back.
Ray Martin.
Gary Pendry has been a lifetime friend since.
But what would we give for a player like that now?
Gary Pendry left back there, and centre backs Roger Hind. Well, I know he's just a nephew of Bill Shankly, but he had Shankly blood in him, and he was as tough as teak. Really, he was like desperate down. I remembered when we played at Swindon Town, they were having a new ground, and so we all got ready in the porter cabin, and he was practicing his jump ups before the game, and the ceiling was made of almost like an asbestos type material, and he put his head straight through it and came out before the game. It was a real desperate damn moment. That was Roger. And when we were on tour once, and we were seeing who could dive the deepest. So they said, "Well, get some pebbles in your hand, go down, and then come up after a bit." And I did that, and of course Roger. Then it was about 30 foot deep, and of course I hadn't been down there, but. He came. He finally. We thought, "Oh my God, he's drowned!" And he came up. And he knew he'd been kidded, but he was a great bro. And Stan Harlan was good. He was experienced. He captained Swindon when they'd won the League Cup against QPR at Wembley. He was a really good acquisition. In midfield, Alan Campbell I thought was a perfect midfield player to supply me out on the wing there, and really relished. He reminded me at times of Freddie Hill, the England international who I'd played with at Bolton Wanderers. On the right, Malcolm Page is a strong, dour quality, perfect team player as well. And
nice moustache as well.
Sorry?
Nice moustache as well.
Yeah. Where was that? I've now got.
You're up to Malcolm Page.
Malcolm Page.
To Malcolm Page. I'm now talking some quality now. Then, if I'm moving,
all quality.
Right. I'd go midfield right. Trevor Francis, 16 years old. He was the best player I've ever seen in the world. ironically, just a few weeks after joining you in December and having my first game against Carlisle, just a few weeks later, we were on a run. We had a run of about 16 unbeaten games, but we played my old team, Bolton Wanderers, and we beat them 4-0, which was a bit rough when you've just played for them, and they're struggling. But he scored every single goal, and he was just 16 years old, and that had to be very special. And I think, obviously, the first £1 million player, he of course, he scored for Forest when they won the European Cup, and Brian Clough never even congratulated him. And but he was quality then. Quality throughout his career, but he did get a lot of injuries. Bob Hatton was the epitome of a goal scorer, and also Bob Latchford. I wasn't surprised when we swapped him for Howard Kendall and he went to Everton. He became the Premier League's top goal scorer and got a special cash award. And I would have loved to have played in that team, but I can't pick myself. So another lad who I thought would do well there with Phil Summerall.
Brilliant player. Yeah,
local.
Yeah. And not being disrespectful like Mark there. You guys.
Who would I have as? I think Kenny Burns I might have as substitute because he could play centre forward or centre half, and he ended up the road from. He ended up being player of the year as well.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And what about your manager, Graham?
Well, I mean,
Gordon.
In fairness, Freddie Goodwin signed me, even though it was the chairman who wanted me. And he did admit to it being the best value for money signing, even though I only cost him 15 grand and it wasn't saying much. But he did give us a chance. I was ready for a move. I'd enjoyed watching him when he was a Busby Babe, when he got in the United team after they'd been destroyed at Munich. He'd also been at Leeds United. He was a massive fan of Don Revie. And of course, Don Revie was acknowledged as a quality player, and as a manager he should have won a lot more, but he's always a little bit scared of the opposition. And there you go. But I'd say Freddie Goodwin. Jim Smith I enjoyed, who later went to Birmingham, but I think it's fair enough to say that I was happy with Freddie Goodwin. Yeah,
I think a lot of people were.
Gordon, did you have much to do with Cloughie over the years? I know he wasn't Blues, but your dealings with Brian Clough.
As a PFA, I've got.
Yeah.
Well,
he's got his own file, hasn't he?
Well, I went to Notts Forest one day. Gary Mills had been injured, but he'd got fit again, and his contract said he should have some money. So I went down there early, got there really early, and Brian's assistant was Ronnie
Fenton.
Ronnie Fenton, well done. Ronnie Fenton. Sorry, Brian can't see you yet. I'm talking like 9:30. And I said, what is it? Oh, well, he's just got some parish priest visiting. So I said, oh, fine. So I waited. And then next minute, I went to see Ronnie again. It's now about 11 o'clock. Oh, well, they're due to play Celtic, and there's trouble with the Celtic fans, and they're all outside queuing up for tickets. So Brian's gone out to appease them. And sure enough, he had his arm round them, leaving the Forest ground car park. I thought, blimey. So they said, well, don't worry. If you could just go and have some lunch with the director. And so it went on like this till about 5 o'clock at night. And then I thought, I'm just going to go home. And then they said, no, he's ready to see you now. So I went in to see him, and, how are you, son? How's things? I'm a big union man, Yeah, I know that. He said, what is it you want? I told him. He said, oh, yeah, it's done. Yeah, no problem. I'll do that. I'll do that for you. And by the way, just as I'm going out the door, he said, it's a bit like Columbo. Have you ever watched The Detective? He's going out the door, he just comes up with another one. He went, oh, just one more question. Where are you going tomorrow? It was a Friday. I said, well, at weekend, I get home, I try and go a bit local. He went, well, he said, he said, oh, and by the way, I've forgotten to give you this gift. And he gave me a cut glass decanter, Notts Forest decanter. And he said, you'll be like my wife. You'll never see me. And I'm like, thanks very much. And then he said, he said, oh, I don't know if I can do the deal, because he said, my brother, we're up at Everton tomorrow, and my brother's going up, and he's not got anybody to sit next to him. And I said, well, he's a big lad. I said, I want you to be that man to keep him company. So that was improving input. And so I went, yeah, that's okay. Because Howard Kendall was the manager at Everton. He'd gone back. He'd been at Preston. He'd been at Everton. He'd been at Birmingham, of course. And then he'd managed Blackburn, and then he'd gone to Everton. But the fans were daubing his door with paint and everything else. And anyway, I rang him. I said, I'm going to see you tomorrow. He said, oh, God, the fans are after me, And I said, I've got to keep Brian Clough's brother company. So I watched the game. He'd signed Andy Gray from Villa, if you remember.
Yeah.
Oh, bad word.
Peter Reid came on, and next minute, they just won every game. They won the title, and they qualified. I think they've qualified for Europe, if you remember. But they couldn't get into Europe because we were banned.
Oh, that's right.
Terrible. They always blame Liverpool for that. But nevertheless, that was the game. And so I kept Brian Clough's brother company and got the job done for Gary Mills. So when you ask me, did I come across Cloughie? There's quite a few stories, but I haven't got enough time to tell.
We'll have you back on again, Gordon.
We'll have to have another show.
I know one thing. He said to Kenny Burns when he played a square ball. These days, how many square balls across the area and slow build-up? Kenny Burns played a square ball across his area, and he whistled him off, and he said, if I ever see you do that again, you won't play for me again. So,
Craig, you've got a minute to reel off about a minute's worth, and then Nick, it's time to go. Go on, Craig.
Yeah. So we've had quite a few actually. This one's got a big time. We've Walter Mouse Pandiani.
Oh no!
Mark Brooks. Didi had a webcam. Dave Twine with Flash Gordon.
Yes.
Jason Hughes. He's really thought about this one with Control Alt and Didi Atabola. That's very good. DVD Atabola from Pete Taylor.
What's poor Daly getting the stick for tonight?
So Nigel Mann's been thinking about it as well with USB under Steve Bruce.
Oh,
Clever.
We've had Michael Woods, Kevin Key Broadhurst.
Clever.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
So we've got Gary, Meg's son.
Meg more. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got USB Carsley. We got Hard Dive.
Hard Dive, yeah. Lilypad said check and spell and doy. I'm not going to read out Paul Hipkiss, even though it is quite funny.
No.
Paul, you're banished.
Oh, that's
got, Neil Dark Web, Hotter Notebook, I thought was very good as well. But for me, Mark Brooks has won it with Alexa Sanchez.
very good.
Yeah.
Over to you, Nick.
Wow.
Over to you.
You know what? Nights like this don't come around very often.
No.
But they don't. In our midst tonight, a gentleman, a perfectly wonderful gentleman who I revered as a child and went on to be, was it chief executive of the PFA and OBE?
Yeah.
An OBE.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking you, mate. I promise you, Gordon, if there's any time you just want to get rid of all this tat, yeah, I'll give you my address.
It's not tat. You can't call he's royalty. He's royalty.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Fixer, thank you very much, sir. Good night. God bless you. Care.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much and have a lovely evening, everybody. Speak to you all next week. And more topics.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a real pleasure to see and speak to you all. Real pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah,
and you, Gordon.
It's been all ours. It's been all ours.
What's it? 44774.
I don't know why that keeps appearing.
It must be something to do with your cricket.
He's a secret agent.
It's net practice tomorrow.
Claire, it's brilliant to see you back from Poland on that journey. You will never forget. I promise you. I promise you. And I know that you will tell so many people to do that same journey.
Oh, you're very brave, going.
It is.
I think you're very brave, going. You're to be applauded for it. Yeah,
it is life changing. Auschwitz and Birkenau for me, and certainly my other half, whose son was killed in Afghanistan. Yeah, and I was really worried about taking her. We got through it, and
20 seconds.
We have amazing memories.
Hopefully, tomorrow.
God bless. Take care. Chris Browne.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much. And cheers to Gordon.
And a guy that has served Birmingham City Football Club, like that I watched run down the wing, and he's got himself to like PFA or something of an OBE. He's got an OBE. What's up? Good night. God bless. Take care. And Gordon Taylor, ex-Birmingham City. What an absolute legend. Loved it, mate. I loved it.
Thank you for your company. It's been really enjoyable.
Following the blues, we love you. What more